Everybody, officially we are kicking off the Mortgage Coach Mastermind call every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific. We're here to bring value, bring leadership, and just connect the community of Mortgage Coach, which is an amazing community of the nation's best loan officers and loan officers that want to be the best. So today, facilitating this, I've got my wingman, Mr. Todd Bookspan. What's up, Todd?
Hey, not much. It is awesome to see everyone this morning. Excited, as always, to spend my Friday launching it off with you guys.
Yeah, no, it is fantastic. And then we also have Jen. Hey, Jen, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. As I was just telling you guys, it has been a great week, and life is good. I'm excited. Excited for everything this week.
Well, it's always a gift to have Jen Duplessis as a leader on this call. By the way, Jen, I know you were saying you were going to have video on. I don't know if you know, but your video is still on, FYI. And we love your video on.
That's what's great about live stuff, right?
Yeah, all good.
Did you see my breakfast? Okay, there you go.
It's all good. It's all good. And then we have Michelle Town. She was just telling us how she's in her Tesla. I think you said it was self-driving you. What's up, Michelle?
Hi. It was trying to self-drive me, but apparently I didn't keep my hand on the wheel long enough, so it won't let me self-drive for another 10 minutes. But yes, happy Friday, everybody.
Yeah, well, be careful. I make sure that thing's working right. Michelle Town is a $100 million a year producer. She's killing it. Michelle, I know I've been getting more and more questions around lead gen and talking about loan officers that are doing a great job of this traditional local referral-based realtor business, but augmenting that with consumer direct strategies. So I don't know how much time we'll have or whether that becomes a top topic today. But I do know that it's just coming up a lot. So I do want to make sure we might talk a little bit about that today, but let's make sure we plan a whole call around that strategy. You good to go?
Good to go on that.
All right. So what I want to do now is I'm going to share my desktop. If you guys could tell me when my desktop is shared. Hopefully you can see it now. I'm going to kick off this call with a little bit of a different rhythm. I always kick off the call talking about what's new in Mortgage Coach land, but I want to do it a little differently. There's a new feature in Facebook groups where you can have multiple posts that you put at the top. So they're called announcements. It used to be that you could only push one post to the top. So we'd kind of feature one post at a time, but now you can, I don't know if there's a limit, but we can put a whole lot of stuff at the top. So I'm going to use that as a way of taking posts that are in the community on a week-by-week basis that we want to open the call talking about. I'm going to put those at the top, and then by noon today, I'm going to clear it out. So if you see something that you want to make sure you follow up on or that you do, realize that it will still be in our Facebook group. It just won't be in the announcement section. So I'm showing it on my screen right now. You'll notice that there is this announcement section, and you notice we have 6 posts up there. So also you'll notice on the screen off to the left, there's general discussion, and then there's announcements. So I just want to kick off the call going through some of the things that I want to make sure this community is aware of. And I'll leave it to you to prioritize whether you want to plan to watch a video, whether you want to work on this. But they're new things that have hit the community or topics that have come up that I think are on point and really important. So first one I wanted to talk about and make sure you guys are aware of is I did an interview with Ryan Berry. Ryan is a $60 million a year producer, operates out of North New Jersey. He just started using Mortgage Coach in February of this year. Super professional mortgage leader. I mean, when you listen to this interview, you're just like, I get why this guy is so successful. But the interview was all about like, Ryan, why didn't you use Mortgage Coach in the past? Because he knew about it. In fact, he signed up and he didn't pay for it. And why did February of 2018 become the time that you made it a habit? And if you listen to this interview, he talks about how he's giving every family a total cost analysis. He talks about how he's gone from this pure high-touch mortgage pro to this high-touch, high-tech, why he did it, how he's doing it. And I just think he epitomizes so many mortgage professionals out there that have been successful one way, and it's 2018. They feel like they need to upgrade how they're doing business. So want to make sure you watch that interview if you want to get more referrals from realtors, and if you want to understand how mortgage codes can be used to help you do that. Todd or Jen, any comments or questions on that one before the next one?
Well, I think don't overlook that interview just because you are a loan officer who's currently using Mortgage Coach, because there's always the tips and tricks of someone who's new, who doesn't have that same curse of knowledge that you've got from using Mortgage Coach for years. And listen and see if there's something they're doing differently than you. That's how I go into an interview like that. So that'd just be my 2 cents on that one and why it's important to listen to.
Yeah, just great leader, great interview, lots of takeaways. And by the way, if you watch it and you get value from it, give it a like and share it with other mortgage leaders. We create these interviews to create as much impact and value for the community. So when you engage with us on social, it helps more people see it. And when you share it, it helps more people see it. Next one I wanted to point out is I did an interview with Cody Touche on Tuesday. And I'm telling you, you guys know I've interviewed a lot of top loan officers. This is a really special interview. The content, just, sometimes his game was on, my game was on, and we really unpacked the modern mortgage professional. I had a lot of takeaways from this. I do think that everybody that's in the Mortgage Coach community, this is just a good interview. Whether you're new in the business, he speaks directly to you. I actually ask questions to help new loan officers. If you're killing it, if you're doing 50 million, 100 million, heck, if you're doing more business than Cody and you're doing 200 million, there is huge value. To me, there was a couple takeaways. The one that I want to talk about right now is just that I don't think there's ever been a time in the industry where top producers had this belief that, if I want to make the same money I'm making today, I need to do more business. They know compensation is an issue. They know the price compression is there, which is not only increasing rate shopping, but they know it's impacting their personal comp. So just the way, I can't remember the question I asked him, but when he said, hey, I am super clear that, I think he said within a few years, I'm going to have to double the volume to make the same amount of money. When $100 million producers like Cody are thinking that and operating like that, I think it's news. And so, he just talked about how I am doing anything and everything I can do to get more out of the day, which, by the way, makes him a perfect guest for this productivity mastermind call. So he will be our special guest next Friday. We will have Cody Touche. I would say you're going to get more value out of that call if you've watched the interview. And also remember, this is a mastermind. So if you have questions, bring it. And we're going to have Cody for a full hour. So be ready to ask him questions and be ready to kind of get a 2.0 on Cody Touche. Todd or Jen, anything you want to add before the next one?
Well, Cody's just a great guy. I know Cody, and I think that there's so much to learn. It's kind of funny as you're saying that, we put out that survey. So those of you who haven't filled out the survey, we'd love your feedback still. winbynoonsurvey.com, where Dave and I are just looking for great data from producers like yourself of all levels. It started off as a project where I was just looking for people doing 4 or less loans, really trying to figure out how you guys are all stuck there. And I've done calls. I've talked to maybe about 15 of the 4 and under producers this week. There's a question on there that says, hey, are you open for a call with Todd? And so I shot them all a link to my calendar, and we got more calls for 2 hours this afternoon. I can't wait to talk to those of you who I'm talking to this afternoon. But it's been huge for me to listen to them, right? Someone who's struggling, what they see. And then I listen to these top producers that I coach and interview. And it's kind of funny to see how there's a lot of similarities in the problems. There's a lot of similarities with, too much information out there. There's a lot of similarities with where do I go with lead gen? There's a lot of similarities with how do I control my calendar? How do I hire an assistant? How do I build a team? And so I'll continue to unpack what I'm learning over the next few weeks here in the community, but I would love any of you who haven't taken the time to do it, if you guys would jump on and do it, it would be a huge help. It was down for yesterday afternoon, so anyone who tried yesterday afternoon, I apologize. I'd love you to swing back there and take a look at it. But go back to it again. I don't want to be a broken record, but I think that there's magic in what Cody had to say, and I'm planning on listening to it this weekend. I know Jen said she was too. So let's all hear what we got to hear and take away, and then let's share ideas.
So guys, I pushed Todd's survey into the announcement section of our Facebook group. So again, it's literally 5 minutes, and we promise that the 4 to 6 minutes you take to fill it out, we will take that information and it will help us bring more leadership, better leadership to these calls and to the community as a whole. So it's right here, check it out. So I'm gonna get through these next couple pretty quick, and then Todd, I'm gonna throw you a fastball with a couple questions, and then Jen, you're next. I'm gonna take this down, but we wanna know, what value do you get from Mortgage Coach? It's super important to us that not only are we bringing leadership through our interviews, our YouTube channel, this call, but that we're just always getting better at, delivering content in a way that gets more value from our product. So if you just let us know, what value do you get from Mortgage Coach? Is it helping you with lead conversion? I think that's obvious, yes. But, and by the way, if there's a value point that you're getting that's not on this survey, add it, so it would be helpful if you let us know that. Good morning, everyone. I want to implement, this was from Brian Callahan. I've had a close friend of mine in the mortgage space that's focusing on employee benefits programs. The post came up, and then I had some other loan officer like 3 times in the past week, getting business from employers, and having mortgage be an employee benefit has come up. So I don't know if we want to make it a topic, but if there is anyone on this call that's having success getting business leads from a company where you have a strategic relationship, I would love for you to raise your hand. I'd love for you to let us know in questions. I'd love for you to participate in this post that Brian put out there. So anybody watching the video, anybody watching us live, if you are having success with employers, please let us know. We want to know what your biggest challenges are. While Todd's survey is comprehensive, it covers a lot of things. Just check, what are your biggest challenges in the market today? If you could answer that quickly. Again, if you have a big challenge that's not on this list, you can add it, so add it. And then last but not least, I'm gonna remove this poll literally at noon today because it's been up here for a long time and we've had hundreds of people participate. But let us know what your top lead sources are. So if you could do that, we'd be grateful. So we're 13 minutes into the call. If you have a question or a topic that you want us to cover, let me know. Hey, Todd, before I throw a question at you, anything come up in the Q&A of the community?
Not yet, but I'm seeing some people on there that are waving to us and stuff, so that's awesome. But all right, I'm ready for my fastballs.
Right.
Questions in the community, guys. Come on, that's we got the chat if you're in Zoom, and then we got the Facebook feed if you're on Facebook Live. So anything that we can do to help you today, would love to chat. I will throw in my 2 cents about the employee benefit program. I think it's a great opportunity out there, but what I've seen with people that I've talked to over the years is if you're going to do that, you kind of have to be all in on it because it's a slow process, right? You have to have a plan and a system for it. So I agree. If we can find any of you out there who are doing it, that would be a great value to add into the community with what your plan is, how you've executed, and what the ongoing maintenance of that account is. I think that's huge.
Yeah, hey, Michelle, a question just came in. I want to ask Todd a question, but if you can be ready for this. But someone said, I know Michelle is a big Zillow Long-Form person. In light of the recent announcement, are you looking for other consumer direct channels? I am going to bring that to you. So be ready for that question in a minute. So Todd, one thing I want to bring up, because let's face it, I walked away from that interview with Cody, saying, yeah, he's right, that you're going to have to do more volume to either make the same, and it's more important than ever that we get really efficient and really profitable with our mortgage practice. So just, coming from, your leader of Win by Noon, give us a 5-minute rant on what are the things that anyone on this call, whether they're new, whether they're experienced, but that they can do to improve efficiency literally next week, like it's Friday. Give us something like we can work on over the weekend so we come in Monday morning with a better focus to be more productive.
All right, just a couple step process, and it's going to sound really basic, but one of the things I learned last year at Sales Mastery was there was a number that was thrown out there, and I don't remember what the source was, if it was the Stratmore Group or Todd Duncan's research. But either way, the numbers were this: 94% of loan officers go into their day with no plan, right? And so again, I mean, 6% of you, maybe those of you on the call, I'm preaching to the choir, part of that 6% who has a plan every day. But as a result, 91% of loan officers have inconsistent month-over-month business. And I see that over and over again when I'm out talking to loan officers across the country. You know, those who don't plan, who fail to plan, you know, basically end up reacting to what everyone else wants. And so I think that there's a couple of ways you can approach this weekend with what Dave's asked was, what would you come into Monday with? And I would first off do a brain dump. There's so much out there, right? You already heard there's 2 interviews that Dave thinks you should watch, right? There's other things that we talk about in this community. You've got way too many ideas up in your brain. Get them out and get them on a piece of paper. So I just call that a brain dump. You're just going to dump that all out there, make a list of all these ideal projects. And then you're going to narrow that list down, right? You know, you can do an ABC list where you're saying, okay, these are the ones I definitely want to implement in the next 90 days. The B list are the ones, hey, these would be great to implement in 6 months. And then everything else, you know, hopefully I can implement someday. But there's no way you're going to get to everything you have. And it's going to be a distraction until it's out of your brain, right? If you ever read David Allen's Getting Things Done, he says you have to have mind like water. So you have to just get it out of your brain into some kind of capturing device. You know, for me, it's paper. Sometimes it's Evernote, you know, whatever works for you, where you can have a list that you can go to. And then look at your week next week, right? So, you know, you guys know me, I'm a broken record about it, but you know, here's my week next week. It's already kind of crazy. It's all filled out. I'm looking at it visually because visual helps me. Visual doesn't help everybody, but it helps most people. About 80% of people, studies show, if they have a visual calendar. So this helps me plan better for my week. Where are my commitments already? Where do I have time to do, you know, what Darren Hardy would call a jam session? I've only got 1 2-hour jam session timed in so far, and then I'll look into fill in the rest of them this weekend when I do my planning meeting ahead of next week and make that week ahead action plan. And then look at your week and schedule those other important things. So when you pick your one project off the A list, so the A list could have 10 projects you want to do in the next, you know, 30 to 90 days. That's not possible. So pick just the one you're going to start on, and then pick the time next week when you're going to work on it. And write, this is my jam session to work on my CRM. This is my jam session to work on some kind of lead generation, something or other, right? Whatever it is you're going to work on, and schedule that time now and make that a real commitment to yourself. I always teach my one and only script that I love, which is, hey, I have a commitment at that time when someone asks me to do something that is important to me, right? If it's important to you to move yourself forward as you close out, you know, we have 4 months left in the year. It's kind of crazy to say that. I mean, I already got people planning for 2019. And so really go into your week really laser focused with a plan, so that when you wake up Monday morning, it's not pulling out your phone, looking at your email, and then whoever's screaming the loudest in your email is the first thing that you do in the day. It should be going into your week to work your own plan. And then once you finish your important priorities that you set out for that day, then you can react to everything else. And if you've taken the time to schedule, hey, this is my time to work on my priorities, and then this is my time to react to everyone else's. And you can't, you know, take 7 hours off Monday morning and only focus on your proactive stuff. You've got to have time in there to react, because it's Monday morning, right? You're coming in after the weekend. You've got to have time to actually look through. You have to be able to filter through everything that came in over the weekend. You got to launch any new contracts you have. You got to see if there's any new leads you need to call. But you should be doing that after you've already made a plan for the rest of the week, so that you don't go into it without anything. Does that make sense, Dave?
Sorry, it took me a second to get off mute. Makes perfect sense. If anybody has a question for Todd around that, you know, just personal productivity, I do think we're in a market where everybody is just overwhelmed. We're, you know, suffering from opportunity overload. You know, I talked to a top producer on just a couple days ago. We're talking like $130 million producer, leads a branch, leads a team, you know, is a leader within their organization. And he was telling me how rate shopping is accelerated in his market. And what was different about it, it wasn't just at the point of sale, it was like after pre-approval. You know, like he's like, I've never had my rates challenged and my programs challenged more further along in the process than they are right now. And he was even talking about how I was talking to some peers, some of the top loan officers in the country, and they were experiencing the same thing. So when you have opportunities and you have challenges like that, you can easily get overwhelmed. So I think it's a good point, Todd. Jen, anything you want to add on to that before we throw a couple questions at Michelle?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, great information, Todd. Thank you so much. And as soon as you started talking about it, the first thing I thought was, jam sessions. And I think all of you know that, I'm just a huge jam session person. In fact, that's really what my time blocking is just a bunch of jam sessions, And so I thought that was fantastic. I think that I just want to reiterate, using Friday, and that's why I love that these calls are on Friday, because Fridays are really my down days. They're my planning days or my blueprint days, and this is where I'm really looking at what's coming up next week and the following, so that I can ensure that I'm ahead of schedule, so that if I have to incorporate something new into a jam session, I don't, find that I'm doing a big presentation and I forgot to do the presentation, right? And so I'm looking further ahead at it. And I think it's really, really important that we stress the need for not reacting to everyone else's, crazy busy life, and, really taking charge and controlling how we move forward. And that's one of the things that I think helps improve our efficiencies. And, I also want to say, we want to be really careful when we're talking about efficiencies, that we also want effectiveness, right? It can't just be efficient if it's not effective. And I can use several examples at some other time, about that, but, make sure that you're trying to get efficiencies in your life, but keep an eye on the effectiveness of what you're doing. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it. And, so the phrase I want to say today, just a little quote is, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Don't try to do what everybody else does. Do what you do best, and focus on the efficiencies that will make you the most effective, not what you think somebody else is doing is going to help you, instead. So I just wanted to say about that, and definitely looking at your week in advance. It's slow down to speed up, slow down to speed up, so that you know what's ahead of you, and that you're prepared and you're present. That's a huge thing, being present. So I just wanted to share that as well. And then I also wanted to just say, I would love to have an employee benefits session that we do, and that we focus specifically on. I did a lot of that when I was producing, and I loved it, and I have thoughts on it, but I'm not the best at it. I did it with, in fact, we have a chat one of our questions are in the chat here. Eddie said that he's doing something with Mercedes. I had an account with Volkswagen corporate, so I know how to do it too, but I don't think I'm the best at it. So I would love to hear what people are doing, and I'd love for us to dedicate one of our calls to the employee benefits program and how people are doing. And I think we could really gain from that. And especially now, we have to do client acquisition ourselves.
Yeah. And Jen, I love that. If you don't mind owning that, and maybe even putting a post of who's doing it, having success. The only thing I want to make sure we do that before we schedule it, that we have a loan officer or two that's doing it today in the market, and they have actual stories to tell, within the past couple months. Because, so if you don't mind kind of helping corral some mortgage coach loan officers that are killing it with the strategy, and then you could be the leader, we'll all be the support role and have you lead a call on that topic. You good to go?
Sounds good. Yep, sounds good.
Love it. So another question came up. Now, Michelle, I'm going to ask you that Zillow question, but I at least wanted to make sure everybody heard this question, because I think it's a good one. It came in from Patrick Brock. By the way, great job, Patrick. I'm getting meetings with realtors, but not getting referrals and deals. What 3 topics of discussion should I be targeting to move the referral relationship along? Should I come to the first meeting with a canned TCA as an example? So Patrick, love that question. I mean, we could probably spend the half this call on that, so we will get to that in a minute. But Michelle, if you don't mind answering that Zillow question one more time, I'm going to ask it. It came in from Emmett Dempsey. Michelle, I know you're big with Zillow long forms in light of recent announcements. Are you looking for any new channels? Michelle, you're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
You're unmuted. Yeah, move the camera down just a little bit, because you're kind of cut off a little bit. Boom.
Sorry. Just in my boot. But wait, I don't like that one. Okay, wait.
Hey,
Okay, there you go. Sorry. So I hope I didn't give everybody a nice flash for the morning. So anyways, okay, good. So Emmett, great question. I have been a Zillow fan and user for almost 7 years now, or a little over, almost 7 years now. And when that announcement came out, I reached out to my person that I've been working with forever. And, you know, there's been a lot of changes that they've done. It's been a lot of how they've changed and remodeled the long form. So the long answer to that is no, I'm no longer using Zillow long form. I'm not I have a little bit of ethics in me, which is, you know, when I support somebody that I expect them to support me back, and with Zillow's recent move and with the Bloomberg video that came out on the CEO, they are moving into real estate and into lending. So I don't blame them at all. That's their thing, but it's not something that I'm going to support anymore. Also, I'm big on adapting. So you have to adapt in this market, right? And I think a lot of you knew I test casted at the beginning of the year radio, because not a lot of people are doing it. So I've actually taken almost 70% of my marketing budget, and I'm in radio now. And I love it.
Hey, Michelle, what does that look like when you say you're in radio?
So so specifically I hired a firm that went and searched a bunch of radio ads or radio stations for me, specific to what my niche products were, because my competitors are not Wells Fargo and Bank of America. I don't compete with them in the jumbo market because they're going to always have a better rate. So I've kind of changed my mindset and said they're not my competitors. So what I've done is I've really gone after the self-employed, the large people, the people that don't fit into the big box lending. And I am actually on a station called The Patriot in LA and North Orange County. I went to a specific target audience, which was high net worth, high self-employed clients. And it's a very expensive ad because I do have a sponsor, Sean Hannity, that sponsors and recommends me. So you don't have to go that big though. You can go smaller without that recommendation. And it is very profitable for me right now because nobody's doing it. And I always look for, again, I hire professionals to do this for me because I don't know. I wouldn't know what ad to go on. But it is if you have a radio station in your area that's local that targets the audience that you want to target, it might be something to look into. But it just talks about ads. I'm on it. There's also one where you can actually be on and do like a 15-minute call-in questions. I have one of my friends that's trying that right now with a different type of audience, and she's having great success as well.
Love it. Love it. I did radio for 5 years. I think Dave remembers back in the day, and it was a blast. Although I did a live 1 hour show and used it to realtors. I mean, wasn't for consumer direct, although we did get consumer direct leads, especially during HARP. But the big strategy was connecting with agents and builders back in the day. It was a very good strategy. So I appreciate you sharing, because I think there's lots of ideas there, and I hadn't heard the way that you're doing it recently, but I think that's sounds pretty solid. What about you, Dave? Have you heard anyone doing radio lately?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of creativity in the space right now with, originators realizing that, hey, we need to get to the buyer sooner. We need to do a better job of not only, do we need the incremental loans that we own, but if I'm a loan officer and I own incremental loans that I can bring to realtors, I have a massive competitive advantage. So I think that is clear with more and more loan officers. You see more and more loan officers execute on that. Michelle, that brings up something. Would you be willing to own a call between now and the end of next month, a Friday, where it's not just radio, but we take the approach that, hey, I'm a referral-based local loan officer, so the core of my business are my past customers and my realtors, but I also need to have, consumer direct strategies. And let's showcase a number of strategies. Let's, have you lead the call. Let's bring in a few other loan officers, and let's just mastermind on that. Would you be game with that, owning that call, Michelle?
I will. I've got a weird September, so when we get off this call, I'll give you my schedule for September.
Well, Yeah, but, I mean, it might be October, so, and that doesn't mean we can talk about that. So mortgage community, if you're watching this live, if, you want to talk about this, next month we have a special guest. That's not going to be the topic, excuse me, next Friday. But I think this is an important topic. And I also don't think it's just one call, because I'm seeing all kinds of strategies. Now, I do want to share my desktop because I want to, like my answer to Zillow is a little different. I'll just share it. We can talk about it. Again, I'm not a producer in the market. Like when I see what Zillow did, it's like I intellectually get it. Like, hey, if I own that, opportunity and I have shareholders, I get that they've got to grow, they've got to own it. And, if I was operating as a lender in the market today, I honestly don't know what I would do, whether I would kind of make a values decision and say, I'm not supporting it, or whether I would, support it. But here's what I do know is you got to know your numbers. And so if you look on my screen right now, there was a post from Tom Ward, good friend of mine, someone that I've learned a lot from. I'm hoping I'm going to get an interview with Tom sometime in the near future. But he did this post this morning, and I was like, he is so right that in this market, if you look at it, you need to know your numbers, you need to have a unique value proposition, and then I'm not going to get into this capacity of production imbalance because it's pretty sophisticated. I think he's talking to branch managers specifically there. But this concept of knowing your numbers, I just can't emphasize enough that if you have a consumer direct strategy, know your numbers. And I'm just saying, like, if Zillow leads are outperforming other channels, know your numbers. Know what is that costing you. And when you make a values decision, just know your numbers. And that, by the way, that came up in my interview with Cody Touche, where, he knows his numbers. He knows how many calls he makes a day. He knows how many conversations he has a day. He knows how many TCAs he does. I didn't ask him, but I don't think he is doing a lot of consumer direct. He was really proud of the fact that 35% of his business was past customers. By the way, he doesn't do annual reviews. This was smart. He's like, I've got 2,000 past customers, but I am actively managing 500 of them, and I am doing biannual reviews with them. I was like, oh, that's super smart. But the guy knows his numbers. So for all you out there that, whether you're buying Zillow leads, whether you have a consumer direct strategy, you got to know your numbers.
Hey, Dave, can I jump in there on that real quick?
Yeah, go for it, man.
It's funny because I thought you were heading this direction before when you were going to throw me my fastball, and you were talking about how Cody was talking about that he was going to need to do more production if he was going to make the same amount of money. You were talking about the fact that, right, you've got to run this like a business and P&L. So I think it's really key, that whole ROI piece is really important. If you're not really looking at what you're spending, because ultimately in the end, at some point, we'll see margins thicken up a little bit, right? As a lot of these big companies, they've gone through their layoffs, as their slowdowns, then they may have to make themselves profitable again, but you can't count on that. What you have to assume is that margins are going to continue to be compressed, and you got to react to that. But even if they were fat, you should still be managing your money. You should still be watching it. I love that you said ROI, right? If you're not really looking at the ROI of what you're doing, there's something missing there, because in the end, you're in business. You run a business within someone else's business, and know what it is that you're spending, because if you can't get more over here from your paycheck, you can actually save more over here from what you're spending on if it's extra, right? We have so many loan officers who just, you're spending $99 on this and you're spending $29 on this and you haven't figured out how to use it. I mean, look at those things and use them or get rid of them, right? Look at where you're spending money. Just really be dialed in on it, because in the end, that's what it boils down to. Is this making me money? Yes or no? And if it's making you money, keep doing it. And if it's not, get rid of it. And then I love the people like Emmett, who's making comments, and like Michelle, who are making a stand too on their principles with regards to Zillow and cutting out something that was probably profitable, but they just don't want to support support the competition, which I think, I applaud that as well.
Got it. So my last point on it, and then Michelle, I'll hand it off to you, is one thing I am certain of is that if you're a referral-based local loan officer, I do believe your past customer database should be your number one priority. Like if you just made my perfect loan process, how you manage mortgages, your absolute number one priority, it'll take care of your realtors. Like even though you may get more business from referrals, and even though one realtor might be worth 5 to 20 transactions a year, if you just made your past customer database your number one priority, your realtors will be taken care of. And then when you go and you're thinking strategically, how am I going to spend my dollars and my time to get in front of the buyer sooner? If you, as a referral-based local loan officer, said, I want to be the digital mayor of my local market. Remember, what makes you unique is you're local. I'm local. This is my address. Now, by the way, if you have a bigger footprint, you don't need to pay attention to this. Although you might want to pick a zip code, but think about, I'm spending my time and my money to be the digital mayor of this. It's one of the reasons why I love the American Dream TV show, and I've referred a lot of big mortgage coach leaders into that platform because I think it's a great investment in saying, I'm going to be the local digital mayor of this market. So strategically, now Zillow fits into that. I'll let you make your own values decision. Just know the numbers, have a strategy, big picture strategy, and then have tactics underneath that support it. Michelle, you have something to say.
I did. I want to be clear on something about Zillow. I'm not completely not supporting them. I'm still doing with some of my realtors. They did help me launch my business and launch into a bigger sphere. And I learned so much from that endeavor. I learned what an ROI was. I learned how to manage massive leads coming in. I learned how to identify what leads were going to be time burners. I learned not to do a mortgage coach presentation for every single person that called. I mean, those are things, I did learn some valuable things. So, the lending part of it, it changed away from where my model was going. So I don't know if again, the principles of the matter are really important to me. But in light of all the other changes that they made, it was becoming more and more difficult to be profitable for them. And that was when that message came out last week, it was probably the just straw that broke the camel's back for me. And I finally said, you know what? This is God putting a sign in my life to say, this isn't working. And I need to focus my energy on what is making me money and what is not costing me so much. So I want to be clear on that. And some of the things that, Todd and Dave have said is really important is I know exactly how many people I talk to every week. I know exactly how many of those convert. I know exactly how many of my mortgage coach presentations are open. We know exactly how many times our emails are open when we're doing a quote. If you're not tracking that, start tracking it because you're going to be eye-opening. It's going to be an eye-opening experience of what you're wasting your time on. And you go, the guy that takes up an hour of your time that's not going anywhere, you're going to be able to give to somebody else who might need the practice. But at your level, you don't need that practice right now. You just let somebody else practice on them and you do it.
Love it. All right, guys. So I'm going to transition the question. If anybody has another question, let me know. Todd, thank you, by the way, for moderating our Facebook Live. Remember, everybody, if you're watching this in Zoom, if you're watching the recording of this on YouTube, this is live in our Facebook group. So in Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind, every Tuesday call and every Friday call, we also broadcast as a live event in Facebook. And it's funny, while we don't have as many people as I would think watching it there, the people that are like, Dave, I love that because I'm watching more and more video. I'm watching more and more live broadcasts in Facebook, and they think this is an added service. So one, it's out there. Two, by the way, if you're one of those people that does like the fact that we're broadcasting it in Facebook, let us know. So let's transition. We got 20 minutes left, everybody. I would love everybody to get to weigh in on this. So question from Patrick. I'm going to repeat it. I'm getting meetings with realtors. So he's up to bat. He's got a meeting with a realtor. I'm not getting the number of deals that I want. What are 3 topics or things that I should bring up in my next conversation with my realtor that will help me get more business from them? And then within that question, should I come to the first meeting with a canned TCA? And so before I hand it off, Todd, I'm going to give you first crack at this. Jen, you're going to get second because we haven't heard from you for a bit. And then Michelle, you'll go third on this. my interview, the one that I positioned at the very beginning of the call, Ryan, it's a 15-minute interview. It was interesting when I asked him, hey, it's February of 2018, why'd you start using Mortgage Coach? And his why was not because I needed better conversion, although he wanted better conversion, but it was realtors. He said, I wanted to upgrade my presentation. I felt that my realtors would appreciate it. I felt that I'd get more business from them. And so his why was the TCA was to upgrade the pre-approval experience for all his referrals from realtors. And so listen to that interview because he also talks about how he integrates it into the realtor conversation. And then also the Jeremy Forcier 5 questions. I'm going to put a link down below to that, but it's 5 questions Jeremy asks every realtor. And I would just tell you, even if you have watched it in the past, watch it again. And then do one more thing. Like, okay, you consume this content, you watched it. Now I want you to think about the last conversation and meeting you had with a realtor. Did you implement? Did you actually follow that process? Or let's say, you didn't use Jeremy's 5 questions, but you used your 5 questions. So my challenge to you, Patrick, is are you going into those meetings with, here's the questions I'm going to ask? Even like you listen to Jeremy, I mean, he's a $130 million producer, plus he manages a region. And sometimes he's writing those questions down before the meeting. So he's going into that meeting with intention, whether it's first meeting, second meeting, he's intentional. And then again, listen to those questions, listen to that interview. And I do believe it will help you. And by the way, yes, you should have a total cost analysis or 2. My recommendation is purchase power, rent versus own, cost of waiting. You should always have 3 examples. But by the way, does that mean you're going to talk about 3 different TCAs with every realtor? No. Does that even mean you're going to pull out a TCA with every realtor? No. It means that you're going to be prepared, but then you're going to ask great questions, you're going to listen, and then you're going to use your value props in a way that's tailored. So I'm done. Todd, you're up. Michelle, you're next. Oh, no, Jen's next. Michelle's last.
You crushed it. I mean, I was thinking through in my head, and then you hit all the points, right? I mean, again, you should have the TCAs available, right? I mean, Dave is Mr. Mortgage Coach. Of course, he's going to say that was how I built my business initially, working with investors. Those of you who didn't watch the interview I did with Steve Chater, the author of Hold, he and I are still planning to have a webinar to teach loan officers how to integrate that strategy. But he actually taught in my office yesterday to 40 realtors, standing room only, how they can use that strategy to upgrade their experience with their clients and add value to their clients and help them build wealth. And it reminded me of what Dave just said, is that, that's what you need to do with Mortgage Coach, right? You're up leveling what you're doing. And so just think about that. What am I bringing? But really where you closed it out, Dave, is where I was going to start it. Yeah, Jeremy's 5 questions are amazing. He also talked a little more about that in the Scriptapalooza. So if you haven't watched the Scriptapalooza, watch that. There's some great info on there as well. And then I think the most important part is the questions behind the questions, right? And so Jeremy's questions are the starting point. You just have to listen and be interested in what they have to say and then dig in with more questions behind those. Because in the end, the way that you're going to get with a realtor or a client, because Jacob Dixon asked about questions for clients on the Facebook Live, is to ask more questions so that you figure out where it is that they're struggling, right? We know this about realtors. Number one, any new realtor you meet with is getting bombarded with loan officer calls every day. Number 2 is you got the meeting with them or you got them on the phone, good for you, but they already have a loan officer, you know that. So you have to figure out what it is that's missing in their current relationship, what it is that's missing in their current business. I would actually start there. The relationship part, they're going to tell you later. But you really want to know what's that part that's missing in their current business, because if you can fill that gap, obviously their other loan officer isn't. That's your opportunity. So that's really where you're trying to go. Jeremy asked it, what's frustrating to you about the process? That's what they're going to tell them they don't like about their current loan officer. But really, in the end, if you can help them figure out what's that dream channel of business that they don't have that they want, and you can figure out how to get them there, then you can develop that piece of business. And then if you do a great job there, then you're going to get most or all of their other business down the road. And so if you're not asking better questions, think about that, how you can do more interviewing, more role play, and don't be afraid to write them down. I mean, you got someone on the phone, I would absolutely write those questions down. So that would be my 2 cents. I don't want to hog the time. I would pass it over to Jen.
Thank you. Well, you guys have pretty much taken everything I was thinking about too. I mean, we've talked about these things quite a bit. And then, I would say go back to the session that Dave did with me. It was a Tuesday interview, Dave, where I talked about my questions that I ask as well. But I'm going to try to sum it up a little bit in saying that, we have, and we continually talk about this, we have the tendency as salespeople to want to give our products and tell about everything that we have. And we have to remember jab, 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 hook, right? We have to give, and then ask. And so that would be the first thing, is don't go in with the thought that I've got this TCA in my hand. I cannot wait to pull it out. And so I'm not going to listen to anything that they're saying because I'm just waiting to yank this out, to say something. And that's exactly what happens when, we have two ears and one mouth, is we're always anticipating what we want to say rather than slowing down to speed up. And so if you slow down, you really listen and hear. I say this to my husband all the time. Are you listening? And he says, yeah, I'm listening. I go, yeah, you are, but you're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. And so it really is slowing down, taking copious notes, asking the right questions, following up with the questions for clarity. Don't assume that you know the answer when someone says, well, I already have a lender. Okay, well, that's great. Tell me about that relationship. How did it happen? How is it going? What do you love about it? What could you change about it? Just so that I could grow as I'm growing with other realtors if you don't want to work with me. I mean, these are the kinds of questions you want to be asking. And then from there, with your grand toolbox that we have of all these possible tools, you only pull out the tools that are going to resonate with them. So that you can get referrals immediately. Because once you've identified their pain and their problem, you are the solution, and you should be able to walk away with referrals from every meeting with a brand new realtor, as long as you're doing the right due diligence, in the approach with them. And again, this gets back at last night. I spoke at the Mortgage Bankers Association. And the topic was networking to your strengths, So it's going in with your strengths. And I love listening to what Michelle's saying. And I've said this before, niche to grow rich. You've got to niche in this market. You cannot be a commodity and be everything to everybody. You've got to figure out what your passion is. Michelle said it very distinctly. If you have a local radio station and you have a target market, and as soon as she said that, I thought, does everybody have a target market? I mean, do you really, really have a target market? Or are you just trying to get any kind of deal that you can get out there? And if you have a target market and you're very specific about it, you will rise to the top. You'll be the cream of the crop, the expert, and everyone will come to you for that need. And you won't have to constantly sell every other thing that you do. You only have to sell those 2 or 3 things that resonate with you. And you will get all the other business. I promise you will. But stay true to yourself. Network to your strengths. Don't try to fill everybody's need. If a realtor wants you to, do wants you to do open houses and you don't do them well, I call that the trifecta. Do what you absolutely love, do what you're excellent at, and do what makes financial sense for your practice. That's it. Do those 3 things. So if you're meeting with a realtor and they don't do they do something or want you to do something that doesn't fit into that, you have to say no. You have to pass. And Darren talks about this all the time. Work on your vital 3. Don't work on your vital 2,000. So that's all I have to say about that. I hope that's, I sound like I'm preaching. Woo! Amen, brother.
Preach. Hashtag preach. Yeah. Michelle.
Well, gosh, I mean, I love coming up in the end because all I get to say is ditto, ditto, and ditto. I'm going to kind of go on everything everybody's been saying. Your target market, it's something that I learned, and it took me a while to learn because every loan officer that I know that is successful, at one point or another, and probably still today, we like shiny objects. We like the new thing. But Jen said it well. If it's not who we are, it's not our vital 3, it doesn't fit in there, you're not going to do it. You're not going to execute on it. You're not going to do well. I don't do open houses. I'm very uncomfortable in open houses. Did I do them at the beginning? Absolutely. To just get comfortable, to know that I hated them. So that's why I did open houses. I figured out yeah, this isn't my best use of my time. My best use of my time is my skill set, my knowledge. Also, by marketing to your target market, you'd be surprised at how comfortable you become. I'm going to let a little private thing come out. I had a date last Thursday, and it was a matchmaking date that was set up, and I was very uncomfortable walking into it because I'm just, everybody gets uncomfortable and my armpits are sweating. But we started chatting, and in the first 5 minutes, we realized we're in the same line of work. I was completely comfortable and had an amazing time. Now, I use that as well as work to say, hey, maybe that's the same thing. Maybe when you're doing something that you love, something you feel good about, something that you're passionate about, something that, you can just find anything that you can grasp onto that makes you just want to go do it, is going to make you better. Darren also talks about that. The reason why people tell you, one of his videos was amazing. The reason people tell you to find something you do that you like for a job, it's not because they want you to do what you like for a job. It's because that 5% of the time where it is absolutely horrible, and it will be, you're going to be able to manage it. And that's what I love. That was one of my favorite videos from this year from him.
Loved it. So, couple things, guys. I put the links. I had mentioned the Jeremy Forcier interview. I had mentioned my interview from yesterday. I put links to those in Zoom. I put links to those in our Facebook group under this live event. I noticed Todd's been doing that too. Also, I just asked you guys, we're learning together as a community. So if you got a takeaway, like you took a note down and it's useful to you, share it. Share it in the Facebook stream. And while I did the housekeeping and I put in that link, I totally welcome anybody on this call. Let's learn together. Let's share together. So rather than open it up, well, first of all, we're always open for questions. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I do want to show my screen again. Hopefully you can see it.
Dave, while you're doing that, there is another question in there for Michelle. I think a follow-up on Zillow in the chat, and maybe she can answer it.
Would you mind asking her, because I'm not seeing it? Would you read it and ask it?
Sure. Sure, I'd be happy to. So Emmett asked, on dovetailing on the Zillow, what do you do with realtors who only work with you if you pay for their Zillow? In my market here in Florida, it's very old boy pay to play. Top buying agents all use Zillow and are all heads in the sand about it. As long as the lender foots the bill, who cares? It's a challenge to work with top producers because they all want Zillow and they haven't learned about any other new marketing ventures. So any comments that you have on that, Michelle, to help someone through that?
Yes, I do. I still have two of my old boy realtors, as you want to call them, that I'm still doing Zillow co-branding with. I have given them a deadline that I would end the relationship at the end of the year. And I've actually used this as an opportunity to sit down and say, I have some other ideas. Can we sit down and talk about them that I think are going to be more profitable than Zillow? So that's what I've done. There is one that is really adamant, and I absolutely love her to death. And it's for our relationships, it's a great ROI for me. So as much as I'd like to, stand up and say, no, Zillow, I'm not going to say that because I don't blame Zillow for what they're doing. I understand why they're doing it. And if I had their platform, I might be doing the same thing that Amazon's doing. They're just capitalizing on it. I don't know that it's going to be successful for them. I hope it is. And there will be people that switch over. It's becoming, I don't know if you guys have it everywhere, but we have big purple bricks out here that's just really kind of started taking over. It's kind of a do-it-yourself listing your house. It's popular right now because it's cheap, but it's not popular in our sphere of influence right now because there's no work being done. So I'm wondering what the caliber is, and is it going to change? Look at Redfin. Nobody thought Redfin was going to do well, and Redfin has done very well. So Emmett, long story long, I don't know that I'm going to 100% give up if my realtor is that adamant, but I'm using it as if it's not a profitable business for me where I can give them the ROI. I'm telling them why I'm not doing it, and most of them support me. I mean, I have 6 relationships that I have completely stopped with Zillow, and all 6 of my realtors are still using me. So to help.
Appreciate
I hope
the
everybody.
transparency there.
Yeah, great transparency. And just, notice when you hear Michelle, she knows her numbers, she knows her values, and she's driving those strategies. I think that's it. And there is no, like, because one person does one thing, that's what you should do. But everybody, know your strategy, know your numbers, and then drive your business plan around that strategy. So I'm showing on my screen 2 things right now. One, I did, another, I think, an important interview. Pat Stone has been a friend and a mentor of mine ever since I moved to Portland. I got introduced to him. If there was a hall of fame in the real estate and mortgage industry of the most impactful leaders, he would be one of them. He's a leader in the title industry, but there's no mortgage real estate executive that I admire more. And that every time I go to lunch with him, which is about once or twice a year, I'm just taking notes. I literally start planning 2 days before I go to lunch with Pat. And then, I always walk away and I spend an hour or 2. Okay, what did Pat say? But I interviewed him, and he talked, my takeaway from the interview, like I did the interview, I transcribed it, I wrote an article. And, at the end of the day, from his take, he said something different to me. Like, there's a perfect storm coming, between the digital transition that's taking place in our space, which is real. Technology is changing how we do life. And then let's face it, we know another recession is coming. It's not like, is a slowdown coming? I don't know. That's just the way the world works. It goes up, it goes down. It's been going on for, hundreds, thousands of years, and so a slowdown's coming. And so anyways, good article. I don't put it out there to scare anybody, but just to remind you guys that, opportunity is ahead, but also struggles ahead. So you guys need to prepare. You need to get efficient. You need to get effective. Also on my screen right now, I recently published an article, as a companion to the lead conversion playbook, the lead generation playbook. I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it, where I, took a bunch of interviews, transcribed them. There's a lot of man and woman hours into this, because not only did I work on it myself, but my team worked on it, and other people in our organization worked on it, where, to prepare yourself as a local referral-based mortgage professional, what are the lead gen strategies you need to have? And then what are the principles you need to have to be successful? So I just wanted to, create some awareness around this content. And then remind you guys, it's still a work in progress. Like, I literally updated it last week. I might think of this call, there may be more updates coming to it. So as we close out today's call, I wanted to create some awareness around it. And with that said, Todd, we got a minute left. I'll let you wrap a bow around today's call.
A minute left. I have to say, this call kind of flew by. I felt like we did a really good job of covering stuff. So thank you guys for your questions, because your questions and your interaction is what drives this call on a day like today. We really like to keep calls like this available where we can interact with the community versus when we have a guest. So as always, appreciate you all taking your most valuable commodity, your time, to be here today. Hope you found it valuable. Of course, Dave, thanks for always bringing us all together. Super happy to see Michelle and Jen both here. That's just a lot of fun. I think to have the 4 of us on together, I think we add a ton of value when we do it, or hopefully we do. And look forward to seeing all the rest of you next week. We got Cody on, Cody Touche, $100 million producer. That's going to be awesome. And if you haven't filled out the Win by Noon survey.com survey, we would love you to do that as well. I'll leave it with that, and look forward to seeing you all next week here, same time, same channel.
And I lied. I want to remind everybody about that interview, and I want to remind you to watch the first one. You'll get more value with this one. And while I stack the deck with topics, if you do have questions for Cody, put them in our Facebook group, and we'll come into that group interview next week with Cody with more questions. Have an awesome Friday, everybody. Have a great weekend, and have a good one. This call's a wrap.
Happy Friday.
Bye.
Happy Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.